What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Nvidia stock, ticker symbol NVDA, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Friday, March 22nd. All right, guys, Nvidia stock here today up $10.63 a share. That's plus 1.18%, at least in the regular session. In the after hours here, it is down a little over $1 a share. Not a whole lot of volatility in the after hours, but listen, regardless, as always, in the after hours, see how that volume is almost non-existent? Please take it with a grain of salt, whether it's confirming your bias or going against your position. If it doesn't compete, the volume that is, with the intraday session, which is only going to happen about 0.1% of the time, then it has to be taken with a very large grain of salt. But let's get started here on Nvidia, starting with our daily ritual, the volume profile analysis on the 5-minute chart. Try to pull out any hidden bias that we can't see simply by looking at the price action. Listen, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. My goal here is 10,000 by the end of April. I think we can get that done with your help. So thanks for jumping aboard. Let's get into it. Now, what do I need here, okay, to try to find that hidden bias? I need three things. I need volume, big spikes in volume, okay? I need that to correlate with moves that are obvious, okay? And by the way, I say big spikes in volume for number one, but really just big changes in volume that correlate with obvious moves in stock price. And then the third one is that it needs to be out of context. The volume in that move still has to be out of context of what's typically expected during that time of day. We can't just look at an opening bar like here, okay, because if you compare it to yesterday, sure, it was more, but it wasn't even double what we saw. Two things. First of all, it's very common to see that opening bar have the highest volume on the day. That's incredibly common. And number two, we have to consider the after hours move that we saw overnight, you know, that difference in between the closing price in Nvidia and the open that we saw. You're going to see some profit taking. The fact that there's wicks on this opening bar tell me that it was a bit of a battle bar, which is going to pump up that volume anyway when you have a lot of buying and selling happening simultaneously. So what I want to look at here is this dump off here, but also this recovery move. Okay, let's just get the whole day back here. And then the other move that I'm primarily interested in is I'm just going to wrap this up into one move. This fade, pop, and fade that we saw. That's it for today. I think we can pull something out of there if there's anything there. Now, let's look at the correlating volume. Okay, you can see that we actually got a very, very quick dump off. That's very contextual. Now, it was a little bizarre. We saw an immediate dump off and then kind of a plateau and then immediate dump off. We oftentimes just see a fade. These four bars here are still very, very contextual. Those four bars after the opening bell are the ones that I'm referring to, or after the opening bar more so. So up to 5 bars in. But, you know, bears, the truth is, you guys are looking for bearish bias on this initial fade compared to the recovery because, you know, you essentially ended up net neutral. A lot of people would look at that uninformed and just say, okay, it's a net neutral move. Those moves were kind of created equal. But the truth is, on the volume profile, when you have two moves like this, sometimes there will be massive bias in one direction or the other. And that tells you that those moves really weren't created equal, even if they ended up back at the same price. Well, bears, unfortunately, there's just not really a whole lot of out-of-context bias on that downside move because this fade-off is expected. Bulls, we saw what started to look like the beginning of some, but it never followed through. I like to see at least 3 consecutive candles that are elevated outside of the context of the day. So that first move is essentially a wash. Now, on this fade move that we got in the afternoon, bears, you guys are looking for bearish bias. Bulls, you guys would ideally be looking for no bias, really. And, you know, we saw 5 consecutive red candles, of course. However, the volume on those bars was not elevated enough for me to sit here and say that it's out of context. It's just the basic bouncing back and forth on the day, just blending right in. The truth is, guys, there's not a lot to pull out of the volume profile here today. But simply by looking at the moves that we just looked at that correlate with the profile analysis, there's information in there, you know, being no information at the end result. Okay, so let's move on here and take a look at the self-fulfilling prophecy psychological levels. These are the levels that I'm paying close attention to here come tomorrow. Starting with the 30-minute chart, we're looking at just the most popular time frames with the most popular indicators you could possibly put on a chart. That's going to be the 50-period moving average and the 200 period. Now, if you guys caught yesterday's video on Nvidia, we talked about how here on the 30-minute, we had just barely broken above this 200 period into the close. We spent about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours above that in the after hours, but we talked about it wasn't 5 hours, and I like to see as much time spent above a new level, at least like a new to us level in the last couple days, right? We're on a zoomed in time frame here. I like to see as much time spent above that or below it if you're a bear as possible, okay, when making a fresh break. We didn't really get a lot of time above there. Now, even to a more extreme degree, we saw that same thing occur with $900, which was a huge level. We'll get to that on the daily chart. But now today, okay, we spent the entirety of the day above an ascending 50-period moving average here on the 30-minute. That's a good thing to see. The only thing that could have made that better, at least in my head, would have been to get a couple of nice clean tests and really good high volume bounces away. So bulls, that's what I'm really looking for ideally here tomorrow on the 30-minute. Any downside test of that 50 period, I don't mind whatever volume we see it on. High volume on the pull away is my ideal scenario, with that 50 period continuing to ascend. Bears, for you guys, it's really simple. You guys want to see a crack back down beneath that 50 period on big volume, and you would want to see a retest, although it kind of comes against you for a second. That retest is worth it. Low volume on the retest, and then boom, high volume on the confirmed rejection. Bears, that would be what you guys would be looking for here tomorrow, Friday. And that could also set you up for a test of 9, which is huge, and we'll talk about that here in a second on the daily. But first, the 4-hour chart, because that 50 period is very much so in play here on the 4-hour. So yesterday, guys, we reclaimed the 50 period on the 4-hour. But again, remember, it was a little bit later in the day. Today, we maintained that. This 4-hour, I would prefer, if I'm a bull, to see that continue to curl up and ascend higher and really help to push in ascending psychological barrier back to the downside. That would be a great bullish scenario here on the 4-hour. And ideally, get that thing above $900 a share. It's currently sitting at about $893. Getting that 50 above 9 would be helpful, because the 4-hour is an incredibly popular chart and everybody is looking at that same moving average. That's the only reason, by the way, the self-fulfilling prophecy mentality. That's the only reason I care to begin with. Bears, for you guys want to see a continuing of that flattening out of that 50 period like we've seen the last day or so, I would say. Keeping that thing ahead of $900 a share, below. All right. Now, the daily. This is where we talk about what, kind of what really happened here today. And this is the most important chart. If you skip a single chart for tomorrow, do not let it be the daily. Now, late day yesterday, which was Wednesday, we reclaimed $900 a share. But you guys know how I kind of work with these more macro time frames. I mean, we're still looking at tomorrow, but the daily, of course, is a macro time frame, the 4-hour. This isn't an intraday mentality. It's a day-to-day mentality. Those really late-day claims, I always warn against, okay, or make warnings about taking them seriously. There's simply not enough time, like on Wednesday, what we saw, for a big sample size of the market to come in and say, listen, we agree that this is happening. All right. The market just closes, and that sample size of volume of market participants is really never able to come in and decide do we really mean this break here. So when that happens, it's always all eyes on the next day. And we talked about in last night's video, Wednesday, that heading into today, now Thursday, would be the battle of confirming the break of $900. And that occurred today. That breakout here was confirmed today. But listen here, $900 is a huge level. Bulls, if Nvidia sees a retest of 9, I'm going to want to see that hold on high volume. Okay? Bears, above $900 is kind of your enemy. Because a lot of bulls have their eyes on all-time highs, $1,000 a share. 900 was kind of your last psychological round number defense against 1,000, and now it's broken. So bears, you want to see a crack back into the 8s as soon as possible on big volume early in the day ideally. Okay, now, my favorite part of the video, let's take a look at the bias out of the options traders here today as they position themselves heading into tomorrow. 1.6 million total contracts traded today. 1 million of those were calls and 595,000 were puts. That's the overall call put ratio. Pretty heavy call side bias on that ratio. But what I'm really interested in here is that short-term speculator delta range, right? That day-to-day, that tells us what are the short-term bets being placed on Nvidia right now. 0 to 20, we had 352,000 calls, 287,000 puts. Call side bias in the short-term speculator category as well. Listen, if you'd like to be grandfathered in, immune to future price raises, that link in the pinned comment will allow you to do so for the Roensch Capital Gold server. That's where I spend all of the intraday session. Working with, not only my Platinum one-on-one members, but the entire group, sending out my personal scalp setup alerts, in-play stock alerts. Those are stocks that have the most attention from traders like now. That's a micro-scalping mentality. Swing trade setup alerts as they come along, and human verified by me personally. Unusual options activity to kind of try to, track what the whales are doing. I've been doing that for years, well before it was ever offered as a service. So that's in the pinned comment. Hope to see you join for tomorrow's trading day. If you got value out of this video, please subscribe to the channel on the way out, and I'll see you in the next one.